Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be going over the best of every Pokemon for GLC. This is going to be a series where I talk about various Pokemon and the best cards that they have for GLC, and today we're going over the starters, or specifically the final evolutions of the starters. But if you have any other Pokemon you want me to go over, comment those down below. I'm considering legendaries, or mythicals, the Pikachu clones, things like that. But right now we're going to go with the starters. By the way, this does not include Pikachu, Eevee, or the Hisuian Pokemon. Essentially, the Hisuian Pokemon are not any. I don't believe any of them are playable, the Hisuian starters, because they all evolve from a different type. If you don't know what GLC is, it is a singleton. So you're one of each card, a single prize, so your Pokemon only give up one prize, no like Radiance either. And then also you can have only one type. So yeah, that means obviously that a lot of these compete with one another, as in like Grass, Water, or Fire. I think there's like a Dark Greninja maybe. You can't play that though. So yeah, let's hop into it though. First of all, Venusaur. There's one really good Venusaur, and this is obviously subjective, but I did my best to make this as objective as possible. Venusaur here is really interesting. This ability Jungle Totem, which essentially doubles the grass energy attached to all your Pokemon. It's really good. It is arguably one of the best Pokemon in the format. Grass is very strong in many senses. It's due to Venusaur's incredible strength. Also, there's this other Venusaur, which is a bit of an older one. I was gonna say like worse stats, but the other Venusaur's attacks like not good. But anyways, this older Venusaur is also pretty good. Once on your turn, you may search the deck for a Pokemon, reveal and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. It's not bad, but it's outclassed by this other Venusaur generally. But yeah, if you're playing a more, if you're not playing an energy ramp style deck, then you wouldn't want to play that Venusaur, I suppose. But doubling energy is just so good. Obviously, it's a stage 2, but it's really good. And I will talk about pre-evolutions if they are necessary, but for the most part, I'll be skipping them. Next up, we have Charizard. There's one really good Charizard. That's the Pokemon Go Charizard here, which is essentially the same thing as the Venusaur, doubling all your fire energy. It doesn't stack, but that doesn't matter. I don't think the other one stacks either. But yeah, so you double all your fire energy attached to your Pokemon. This one has a better attack as well, 170, much better than 90. It's a very good Pokemon. It's amazing for fire types. And then this other Charizard from Team Up is also okay. It accelerates energy to itself. It hits pretty hard, and it like builds itself up. It's a good Pokemon. That being said, it like dies and its HP is lower and it doesn't support your other Pokemon. So the other Pokemon Go Charizard is insane, especially if you're playing the mill build. You definitely need that Charizard as well. But overall, yeah, again, same essentially Pokemon as the Venusaur. This Charizard is completely broken, and the other one's certainly all right as well. Next up, we got Blastoise. This one, the best one's the Deluge Blastoise. Again, a very defining Pokemon of GLC, and arguably the poster child of GLC. It's really just good. It accelerates as much energy as you like from your hand to your Pokemon. We've actually seen this reprinted once directly and once kind of. So we saw it with Max Calibur. Max Calibur is better than Blastoise, but Blastoise came out like sooner, and then Frostmoth as well, which is it's different in some senses. It's worse, some senses it's better. But yeah, Blastoise is very good. Arguably, it's outclassed by Max Calibur now, but Blastoise is super good, accelerating tons of water energy. And then you also have this other Blastoise in the middle here from Pokemon Go. I don't know the set symbols for the older ones, unfortunately. I think is that Plasma Blast? I don't know. But anyways, the other one that people sometimes play is the Pokemon Go Blastoise, which accelerates a ton of energy from your deck when you use its ability. That being said, it ends your turn, and it's not like it's not as good, but it's still alright. It's for like certain combo-based things, but without Amazing Rare Character has been banned, so it can't set that up, and it's not as good. There's also the other Blastoise from the Sun and Moon era, Powerful Squall, which allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and accelerate water energies you find there to your Pokemon any way you like. And then you have a better attack, 150 for 3, and then you do damage yourself, but it's pretty good. That being said, obviously this ability is a little bit inconsistent. you could run it, but when you're running all these other Pokemon similar to Deluge Blastoise, you want Deluge Blastoise. But yeah, all three of the Kanto Stars have insane cards and are played in probably most GLC decks of their type. Not all, but most. Next up, we have Meganium. Meganium is not as good. So Meganium, as far as I know, this card doesn't really like see any play, but it is the best one as I was looking. I think there are only like two, anyways. By the way, the format is expanded, like the full expanded on because I know that's just what it is. And then this Meganium's its ability is kind of like Rare Candy. It's a little better, but yeah, no one really like places one. There isn't a particularly good Meganium, unfortunately. Same thing with Typhlosion. Typhlosion has this one. There's this one on the right that like turns your energy into fire energy. It has like a lost zoning attack, and this other one mills atop your deck and then does for each fire energy you hit there, it does 80. So it's really strong. You could build a deck around it where you like discard fire energies. There are some decks like that, but not with not usually with this Typhlosion. Unfortunately, Typhlosion also isn't too good. It's not garbage, but it's not great. Last but not least of the Johto stars, though, it's going to be Feraligatr. Feraligatr here is really interesting. It's a spiritual reprint of like an older card. And this is not necessarily the best deck. It's another one of the like iconic decks of the format, Downpour and Riptide. So you can like discard all this water energy from your hand, and then you do 20 for each water in your discard, and then you shuffle them back. It's its own like deck thing where you just have like all this energy and it's like cycling around. It's really interesting. Is it the strongest? No, but it's a fun deck to play. It's certainly it's a good Pokemon. You could even tack it into other decks, but that's not ideal. But Feraligatr here is a really good Pokemon and a really solid Pokemon, an interesting one. It's probably worse than the Kanto stars, but better than the other Johto stars. Next up, we have. Oh, and if you want me to put these in a tier list, I could do that as well. At some point. But yeah, next up we have Sceptile here. And this Sceptile, okay, so Sceptile, I need to talk about Gravile. There's Gravile and there's also Grottle, which are similar sounding and have the same ability, lets you just search for grass Pokemon on a stage one. It's very good. And then you have, which means like that's why you wouldn't play the searching Venusaur because, you got enough Pokemon search. But then so that's really nice, meaning that you're almost always playing Gravile, and you may or Grovile, I don't know. And then Sceptile is a nice addition. And then so we have Power of Nature, which means you're immune to Ultra Beasts, which is kind of interesting. That's not bad by any means. Notably, you're probably nervous about, I guess, Guzzlord. That's the main deck here. You're not like super worried about Ultra Beasts because you hit a lot of them for like weakness or the decks that they're in for weakness, but it's still pretty nice. And then you have Powerful Storm. It does 20 times the amount of energy attached to all your Pokemon. And with the really powerful Rillaboom, which we are going to talk about, as well as the Venusaur, you get like all this energy and plane just hit really hard with Sceptile. It's not the best attacker in the grass deck, but it's okay. But you'll play it probably. And there's this other Sceptile, which is once in a turn you attach a grass energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, then heal 30 from that. It's an acceleration Pokemon. I think it's like okay. It seems like it should be pretty good. I don't think it's as good as it seems. Most people play the other Sceptile as just a very good attacker. And a relatively like cheap attacker as well. Obviously it's one energy, but you need energy other places. But then the other Sceptile for healing is kind of interesting. I know it sees some play. I don't think it sees much play, but it's still a very good card. Sceptile's like again one of the possible poster children. I suppose Gravile, but Sceptile and Gravile very iconic in GLC as well. Except Blaziken, not as good as Sceptile here, but still alright. Fire Shredder, allowing you to accelerate fire energy from your discard to your bench Pokemon. Same thing as like Flaffy and Electric, but it's a stage 2, so it's worse. And you have an attack that does some spread and decent active damage. It's not like an amazing attack, but I figured it was one that, it's an okay Pokemon. Next up, we have Blaziken here, the one on the right, which has more HP, arguably a better attack, but no good ability here. But it is fire, and there's also fighting type if it's in play. That's, of course, very useful if you're up against like a lightning type deck or some other deck that's weak to fighting. So that's like a cool thing. Of course, there are flying type Pokemon, which means that you might like hit them for resistance. But anyways, I think this Blaziken is also pretty cool and definitely playable, although it's not amazing. It usually these don't see too much play. Next up, we have Swampert. So the one on the left is the more played Swampert, I believe, but the one on the right was like banned for a while during the peak of the format. So I really don't know how much play it's seeing. I don't know which one's better, but the one on the left, they're similar. They have like an energy ramp style attack, um, which is obviously it's very good with a water-based deck where you have the Deluge Blastoise as well as some other things. Um, and then you have on the left Power Draw, allowing you to just discard one, draw three. It's an insane draw ability. It's one of the better draw Pokemon in the format, and it's a very solid inclusion in water decks. It's not always played because water already has some pretty insane like draw and setup Pokemon. We'll talk about them later, but not all of them later. Something like Octillery is like very good. But then Hydro Pump, next Engix ramp style attack. Then the other Swampert here also has an energy ramp style attack. Then Diving Search, once during a turn, you may search your deck for a card and put it on top of your deck, which is an okay ability. It's not like amazing, but it'll get the job done. It's a nice addition to the deck, and obviously gives you some versatility there. Next up, we have Torterra. Again, I talked about Grottle. I said it's the same as Gravel, which allows you to search your deck for any grass Pokemon. And this Torterra is insane. It has 190 HP and this Evo Press 50 for 2 times the amount of evolution Pokemon you have in play. This will easily beating at least 150, probably more. It'll probably one-shot anything for 2 energy and has 190 HP. It is one of the best Pokemon in the format right now. It is very, very strong. And there's not too much to say about it other than it's very good. Next up, Infernape. First of all, the one on the right says burn is 6 instead of 2. There's a burn-based fire deck. That being said, it's not like the best deck in the world. I'm not going to pretend it is. But it is a deck out there, in that you play this Infernape. But generally, you play the one on the left. Either 120 for 2 fire, and then you discard the fire attached to it, or the main deck built around. This is another one of those Pokemon that has like a deck built around it. Flare up for 200 for 2 fire. Again, amazing. If you have fewer than 10 fire energy in your discard, though, it doesn't do anything. But if you have more, then you shuffle all the energy back. So it's very similar to Riptide Feraligatr. And then you have some other things to do with it. You just like discard a bunch of fire energy using stuff like Salazzle and Ninetales. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting card. That's just you want to get all this energy in the discard, and obviously Fire has some pretty good support tools in the format. So Infernape is it's a good Pokemon. It's not an amazing Pokemon, but I'd say it's somewhere in like the middle of the Pokemon we're looking at, maybe in the bottom half. But it's a fun one as well. Next up, we got Empoleon, many people's favorite starters, I believe, and it's like really cool one. Empoleon, there are 3. I was considering putting a 4th one. There's one that like draws and like does damage. It's old and it's kind of outclassed, unfortunately. But yeah, these 3 Empoleons are pretty insane. The one on the left, the most played, I guess, is really interesting. Its attack is 60 snipe to 1, which isn't that very impressive. But it has an ability, if you have no cards in hand, you can just put it straight from the discard pile into play, which is kind of funky because like like then you don't have any, like, you've lost your hand, which is kind of scary. And drawing 3 isn't a ton, but it's a good Pokemon for that. And then you have these other Empoleons. Excuse me. The one with the recall copies the previous evolutions. The previous evolutions to the Empoleon. There's one that snipes and one that like is just an all-right attacker. It's not like the best Pokemon by any means, but it's a fun one with a little bit of versatility. And it's a very solid attacker. Then the Empoleon here in the middle is going to be one that just is like a quote unquote beat stick, like a very big Pokemon, 160 HP. Obviously, they all have 160 HP, but then it does 20 for each bench Pokemon, so that can be hitting 200. It's kind of like Torterra. It's worse than Torterra. It doesn't see too much play. I'd say most decks don't play on Empoleon, but some certainly do. And these are all decent Pokemon. Next up, moving on to Gen 5, and Serperior is not very good. It's like a healing Pokemon, which is okay. Unfortunately, there are not any very good Serperiors in the format right now. So Serperior is a cool Pokemon, I think. But anyways, next up, Emboar, and there are some pretty good Emboars. You got the classic, essentially Deluge fire Pokemon with this Emboar with Inferno Fandango, which just accelerates a bunch of fire energy from your hand to your Pokemon. It's very good. It is in some senses the backbone of fire, although fire decks don't always play it. But they quite often do. There's also this Emboar that buffs the amount of damage your single strike Pokemon do. Apparently, I saw someone like playing that, but it's kind of weird. And then there's this other Emboar that says. You evolve it, you just like accelerate energy. It's not the best, but it's pretty good stats too. Um, Next up, we got Samurai, and this Samurai's okay. It takes less damage from attacks, and then it also has an attack that's like not that good, but it's a pretty tanky Pokemon. So it's an option. I don't think most of our decks play it, but some do. And as I said, like Hisuian forms aren't, unfortunately, are not really playable. And you have Chestnut. This Chestnut's like really bad. Admittedly, it's not good. There aren't any good Chestnuts in the format. I don't think this one sees any play. I don't remember how many there are, but unfortunately they're bad. Delphox on the hand is very good. So we got a Delphox that allows you to draw until you have 6 in hand. That's pretty good because, yeah, I mean, it's a great ability. And then you also have an attack that's an energy ramp style attack again, which is good. And then we have the other Delphox, which like burns your opponent. It's okay. I don't really think you'd ever play it over the other Delphox, but it's a nice option to just get some extra damage in play. But again, I would end up burn-based deck, but it doesn't see too much play compared to the insane draw one. Next up, Greninja. Greninja is good. And the main Greninja here is going to be the one with Evasion Jutsu, which is immune to damage on a coin flip, which, if that sounds toxic, it is. And then it has a spread-based attack. It's not the best attack in the world, but it's certainly decent, and it will get the job done when you're only taking damage half the time. And then this other Greninja here has an attack that turns off abilities. This is the other two Greninjas are from the notorious Greninja Break deck. Some people really hate that deck. And then it like turns off abilities, and then the other one does like places damage counters. I've heard of people mentioning using that one. I don't know if people actually have though, but just keep in mind that that is a Pokemon out there, and a decent spread Pokemon. The next, Decidueye. Decidueye is another interesting one. Again, not the greatest, but not awful either. There's two. The one on the right was primarily used for its ability in Standard and in GLC. The ability doesn't do anything. However, you have your attack that's 90 and 20 to 2. And then on the other stage, where you have a 40 snipe or 80 to the active, 80 to 1 to the bench. But it needs to have damage counters on it. So obviously, keep in mind that this Decidueye here is going to be a pretty like solid pseudo spread based Pokemon, but unfortunately it's outclassed by many things in grass that are more straightforward, but it's still it's all right. Next up, we have Incineroar. And so, first of all, the Incineroar on the right just buffs the damage by 30. That's just quite good. And then it has all right stats, but then the one on the left is very interesting. Again, it has an attack that lets you copy your previous evolutions. It's kind of like Empoleon. This one's less versatile, but just stronger. You can tank. You can do big damage as well. So keep in mind, it's a very strong Pokemon. Primarina. This one's interesting, saying when you attach water, you attach twice. Except for the issue is that in Deluge-based decks, it's kind of useless because you can attach all your energies anyways. And by those energy from, I believe, hand. So it doesn't double up Aqua Patch or Raihan. But yeah, it's theoretically a good Pokemon, but unfortunately it doesn't really have any good partners within the grass world. But it's a cool card. And then we have Rillaboom. Rillaboom is pretty insane. Again, another one of the poster children of GLC. It accelerates energy from your deck to your grass Pokemon. I mean, it's just like super good. Because it gets all this energy in play. You pair with Venusaur, all of a sudden accelerating like 4 energy every turn. It's pretty broken. So yeah, this Rillaboom, very good. Next up, Cinderace. I don't know which one of these is better. The one swings in and accelerates to itself, and the other one just hits really hard. I'd say the one on the left is better because it fulfills its attack cost easier, but they're both very solid. They're pretty decent, versatile Pokemon that can just hit very hard. Next up, we have Inteleon, and Inteleon is possibly the best Pokemon on this list. Both of them are good. The one on the right just pings, but the one on the left is insane. It has its ability that lets you just search the deck for any 2 trainers on play, and Drizzle, the stage 1, also does that for 1 trainer. And it has an attack Aquabill at 120 to the active 22 on the bench, which isn't even bad. The other Inteleon 70 for 2 is not very good. But yeah, 120 and 20 is okay. And 160 HP, like it's so good because it allows you to set up super consistently. It's really good. And there's even they keep calling Sabo, which is solid. And then lastly, we have the Scarlet and Violet stars, and these are good. Scrat, I don't really talk about too much. Or Skeletors is okay, though. You can accelerate energies, and you can also do some pretty solid damage. And that's an interesting Pokemon. I'm not sure if it's good enough to see play, but it's not a bad Pokemon. And then Quaquaval lets you accelerate a basic energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. It's very much outclassed by the other like Deluge style accelerators, but if you want like an extra, I guess you can play. It's not very good. It's not a bad Pokemon, but in the context, it's heavily outclassed. But I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are. If I missed anything, you think, what other like sets of Pokemon you want me to go over next? As I said, I could do. I don't know, there are different things, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoyed, I'd love you to subscribe, and I'm excited to see, like the video as well and comment. That helps me out a lot. Or you can dislike, right? Then I think that might actually also help. But if you enjoyed it, like it. If you don't enjoy it, dislike it. And then. Yeah, I'm gonna do some more GLC style content in the future. I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna go, but I'm gonna do it. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you next time.